Well, hello again everybody, and you're joining me today over the Christmas holidays. And with Christmas in mind, I think I'll start off by wishing you all a very Merry Christmas and a happy and prosperous New Year to you all. Now over the last 7 days here in South Yorkshire, it's certainly been a wet and windy one with gale force winds, and I think in the next few days maybe even some snow forecast. Well, over the Christmas vacation, I always have lots of plans for projects that I'm going to do outside in the workshop. But at this very cold and windy time of year here in the UK, it really doesn't take very much to discourage me from going out into the garage and doing those mechanical projects. And so of course I normally choose to stay up late drinking red wine and then lying in bed most of the day watching YouTube videos. But this year I've actually been quite determined to get out there in the workshop, so in the run up to Christmas you saw that I bought this diesel powered heater. I went ahead, built a stand for it, wired up a power supply and installed the unit into my garage, with somewhat disappointing results it has to be said. So this has been running for about 20 minutes now, and you can see that the smoke hasn't cleared yet. I think most of what's coming out of here is just water vapour. It's certainly very wet, but there's still quite a strong smell of diesel, and to me it does smell like one of those diesel engines that's running with weeping injectors. So I don't think that this is burning particularly efficiently at the moment, unfortunately. I suspect that the heater's just not really getting hot enough. So initially I think it's fair to say that I wasn't really very happy with the operation of my Maxpeedingrods heater. Not only was the heat output from the unit very low, not what I was expecting from an 8 kilowatt unit, but it was also the amount of white smoke that was being exhausted, and the fact that the white smoke absolutely smelt terribly of unburnt diesel fuel, and I really just couldn't live with that. So because of these problems, in the first instance I actually reached out to the help desk at Maxpeedingrods and asked them for some advice. Now in my email to them I actually explained that the heater wasn't getting very hot and also that it was ejecting this white smoke, and their response was to send me an email saying that yes, they'd heard this before and the problem was more than likely that I'd over-primed it and there was an awful lot of diesel fuel just sitting in the combustion chamber which really couldn't reach temperature and be adequately burnt. And as well as the email from Maxpeedingrods, they'd also sent me a video which basically shows how to purge the system by blowing compressed air into the exhaust and into the air intake and also to the fuel input, and actually just giving the heater a good shake around in the hope that any actual residual fuel that could be stuck within that combustion chamber, hopefully it will get ejected from the heater, and the next time we try to restart it, hopefully all will be good. And based on that advice from Maxpeedingrods, that's what we're going to do today. We're going to try to purge the heater of any excess diesel that may have resulted from me over-priming it. Unfortunately, the start of our investigation does mean actually removing the heater so we can get access to all the various parts. So we're going to do that first. Well, I suspect having this tank totally full of diesel won't end well for me. Oh, well, it's actually leaking quite badly anyway. So I think what we need to do is go ahead and try and remove this before it ends up all over my feet in the garage floor. Probably won't be very successful at either. When you pull on this green hose it just gets tighter on the fuel fitting And again, it's a bit difficult to get at without removing everything. I'm hoping I won't have to do that, maybe I will. What I'm going to try and do first is just see if we can kind of drain it back down here, which, well, yeah, can, no problem. And now I think the key to it is to try to provide some back pressure to try to flush out any diesel that may be welling up from within this. Now when I set this up, I did actually prime it for about a minute, because the instructions tell you to prime it, but they don't really give you any information about how long you should prime it for. And I guess that how long you prime it for probably depends on the position of your fuel tank and how long this hose is. Now on a vehicle installation you could be pulling from a tank that's maybe several feet away, but for this one the tank was just set above it. So I'm wondering if the problems that I'm having are partly my fault. Unfortunately, these type of things aren't fully explained in the manual, and I suspect I'm not the only person that's had these kind of problems. So I think what I'm going to try to do is I'm going to use my air compressor, much like they do in the video, to try to purge it of fuel, get rid of it, get it out of that combustion chamber, and then maybe try and do a dry start and see if it starts up properly. Yeah, I think that did something. Now, did any fuel come out of anywhere else? I don't think it did. Let me try blasting some clean air into the air intake first. Well, nothing's coming out of there. You know what, I didn't think any fuel's run out of here then, so I'm just wondering how flooded it actually is. Well, don't think that had any effect. Can't see any diesel pooling in there. So according to the instructions here, we've got to remove all excess oil from inside the machine. Well, as far as I know, I've done that. Use fan mode to expel out excess oil. Refer to section 6.37. The only problem we have is the manual only goes up to section 6.3. It doesn't actually have a 6.7. So yeah, well done. Well, without any more information, about the only thing I think that I can do is actually try to start this unit again, but maybe with the diesel fuel supply switched off to it, in the hope that that glow plug in there is going to burn off any diesel. Now, I've blown it through with a compressor, I've tipped the unit upside down several times, absolutely no diesel ran out of it whatsoever. So yeah, I don't know if that was a problem or not. Certainly it could have been. But I think the other thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to try turning up the voltage on this power supply a bit, because it says the maximum input is 16 volts. I've got this set to about 12, and I'm kind of thinking that this is quite a long length of wire, and I actually think that that's quite thin wire to be rated for 15 or 16 amps. So I'm just wondering also, is there enough of a volt drop through this cable just to stop that glow plug getting to quite the right temperature to ignite that diesel? Not sure it's a possibility. But when I actually dry run this, what I'm going to do is I think I want to keep some fuel circulating through the pump itself, because I don't know, maybe this pump could overheat if it didn't have the fuel to cool it as it passes through it. So I think all I'm going to do in that case is I'm just going to feed this tube back in, so the pump basically pumps it out the tank into this tube here, then it's going to pump it back into the tank again, and yeah, that's all we're going to do. So let's put some power on it. I'm going to try and start it up again. I've got the garage door wide open. Let's restart it, see what happens. So the fan's going very slowly now, and the fuel pump is actually ticking, so it's trying to put some fuel into it. Of course it can't put any fuel into it at the moment because the fuel pipe is just feeding back onto itself. So my power supply is outputting 12.13 volts. We can increase that a little bit. Okay, so we're at 13 volts now, so that does actually sound a little bit better. Maybe we can go a little bit higher, 13.8, that would be on a running vehicle, wouldn't it? Oh, 13.68, that'll do for now. Now the pump stopped, and I think that unit has shut itself down, probably because it detected there was no fuel going into it. There's no error message or anything like that on the screen. It has just stopped. Guess what we might do is try turning it off now, and it should go through its cool down turning off cycle, I'm guessing. So the fan is still running. I'm not absolutely sure, but I think as part of the cool down cycle, when you turn it off, what it does actually do is it actually turns the glow plug back on a while. I think the purpose of that is to burn off any soot that could have accommodated on it, so it's ready for the next startup. I'm not certain about that, but I think that's what's happening. So again, I'm going to leave this just to go through its full off cycle, wait for the fan to stop, and then we might try another on cycle and again see if that clears any more diesel out of it. I'm going to switch it on one more time and let it run through another of those hot cycles again. Okay, so it says according to this my glow plug is pulling 7.8 amps at the moment. So nowhere near the 15 that it says that this heater could be taking, it's drawing just 7.8. Fan is going slowly, still got no fuel connected. Nothing at all coming out of the exhaust at the moment, but again this heater in theory has got no fuel in it, so the only thing that's happening is my glow plug is going to get very hot. Okay, the pump started and the glow plug current has ramped up. Well, it did ramp up for a second, it went to nearly 9 amps, but it's come back down again. Wonder if there's some kind of temperature regulation going on in the glow plug, not sure. Wondered how much fuel actually comes out on a pulse. Well, actually a really tiny amount of fuel there. Yeah, just a few drops, not very much at all. Okay, I've switched it off again. Interestingly enough, when you switch it off you can see that that glow plug current does ramp up. So I think that's what it is doing, it is trying to burn off to make sure that glow plug is clean, ready for the next start. But absolutely no smoke is coming out of the heater as I do these tests, so I'm convinced that there's no diesel left in it. It is properly cleaned out now, so I think all we can do is actually try to restart it with the diesel supply connected and see if it all works well. Let's just let this finish its cycle though. The fuel in the tank's right on the level of the inlet to the pump. Don't want it drawing in air, so I'm going to just top that up just a little more. So I'm sure that'll be fine for a test run. It's now above the level. Okay, the glow plug has jumped into life. It's drawing 6.8 amps now, 7 amps. Yes, and the fan has actually started. A little bit of a draft coming out of the exhaust, but no smoke, and certainly the pump hasn't started, so in theory there's no fuel down there yet. Still waiting for that. Oh, there we go. I was going to say that pump kept me waiting then. Now as soon as the pump started we can see that the current's gone up a bit to 9 amps. you what, I'm going to stay out of the garage here because I don't want to breathe this stuff in. I think the smoke is slowly clearing as everything heats up and burns off. So I do believe we could have got some success now, but I'm not completely sure. What I'll do is we'll give it 20 minutes and I'll bring you back. Okay, certainly there's more smoke coming off my exhaust wrap now than there is out of the exhaust itself, because, well, exhaust wrap does that the first time you do it, and it is pretty horrible rancid smoke. You don't want to breathe it in. So I don't know why I'm standing here. In fact, I'm going to go out again. I said I was going to do that. So we're done. Bye. So before, I think the air coming out of this was actually only about 40 degrees. Now it's, well, my meter here is saying it's 120, 130 degrees and rising. It is now too hot to hold your hand in front of it. Fortunately, I can't be absolutely sure what was wrong previously. It was either a combination of maybe I overprimed it, dumped too much fuel into it and it couldn't start. Maybe the voltage drop on these quite long wires was just a little bit big, and now I've turned up the power supply to 13.8 volts from 12. Maybe it's given that glow plug just a little bit more of what it needed to start up. The only other difference is we haven't actually got the air intake pipe connected at the moment, which really I do think you should be connecting, because these are designed to be installed as a balance system. So I think what I am going to do is I'm going to turn this off now, because certainly it's performing a lot better than it was before. There's absolutely no smoke coming out of the exhaust, it's completely clear. I think what we have to do next is actually prove this unit with the air inlet pipe to the burner connected, because at the moment it's getting a really good airflow because it's just sucking air from under itself. Now it's quite tempting not to take the air from the outside to actually draw it from within the workshop, but you shouldn't do that. These are designed to be run as a balanced system, in that the air pressure on the exhaust has to be the same as the inlet. And the other reason why you don't want to take the air from within your workshop to run the burner is, well, there's a few reasons. One of the reasons is if you get a fault, you're going to get fumes coming back out through the air intake. That is quite possible, including lots of white smoke. But the other thing is, you're going to be sucking air into the burner and blowing it outside of the workshop. Now the air you suck in and burn has to be replaced, so that means that cold air is going to be drawn into your workshop, and then you're going to have to heat it up again. So that's pointless. So I think, yeah, I'm really happy with that. Let's give it another quick test. I effectively move my arm and out the way, it's so hot. Well, it depends exactly where you position it. It's showing about 113 degrees now, 111, 109, yeah, but it's really hot. Okay, let's turn it off. I'll bring you back when I've got it pushed back through the wall, and we'll give it another try. Fingers crossed. Okay, come on, bring the thunder. We're good. Switch on. Okay, bring the thunder. Well, the air coming out of it now is, I don't know, it's about like it was before. It's warm at about 40 degrees. Okay, the air might be starting to get a bit hotter now, not exactly sure. Well, I do believe it might actually be working now. So the temperature in my workshop is about 9.9 degrees. I've got the unit switched on to its max output at the moment, and the air coming out of it, it's warm, but it is on its way to hot. I think it's warmer than it was before. Let's give it 5 or 10 minutes. I think I'll shut the garage door so it can start to hopefully recirculate some warm air. Yeah, that definitely does feel hotter to me. Okay, so I've set this timer to an hour. The current temperature is about 9 degrees. Let's see how warm we can get it in my double garage. So for the last hour I've had the heater set to warp factor 8 and the temperature has definitely warmed up a little bit in here. Let's see what the outside temperature is first. So I've got a 1 centimetre gap at the top and bottom of my garage doors, and it literally is blowing a gale outside. So I'm sure that a lot of the warm air is being lost, and I can feel a hell of a draft blowing in through this gap at the moment. So the outside temperature at the moment, if we believe it, 8.4 degrees. 8.4 degrees. And I think probably falling because it's night time now. Now it does somewhat depend where you position this thermocouple in the airflow, but at the moment the hot air coming out of the heater unit, it's 145, 146 degrees, 147 degrees. So yeah, certainly some significant combustion going on because it is warming the air. Let's see what the actual air temperature is in the garage now. What's it risen to over 1 hour of running this heater? Okay, I think it's settled down there, and it's about 12.6 degrees. So not a massive increase in temperature, is it? 12.6 degrees. Now, although I've said that temperature increase isn't massive, I'm actually in here now in just the fleece and a t-shirt, and I've taken the hat off. So it's actually warmed that up. Actually, 12 degrees, 12, 13 degrees, I can work in that. That's not too bad for me. I think the problem is though, I've just got too many leaks in this garage. I think it's fair to say that we got off to a rocky start with this heater from Maxpeedingrods, but their customer service, they did answer my email very quickly and gave me some advice. Whether that advice was correct, I'm not 100% sure, but as you can see the heater is working and seems to be working. I'm going to say the heater itself is working quite well. But the problem is, I think the actual size of my garage, it's just a little bit too big for the actual heat output, because it's not exactly toasty and warm in here, but it's certainly made an improvement. So you can maybe see in my garage, I've actually gone ahead and I've actually boarded the roof out, which does allow me to just store some additional crap in the roof space. And to some extent, I think that does slightly reduce the volume of the garage, and that should be working in my favour. But unfortunately you can see that the boards that are set on top of these joists here, they don't actually go to the very end because, well, don't really know what you describe it as, but they can't go to the very end because they're sat on top of the joist. So you've got these gaps all the way around the garage. So maybe if we went up to the roof space, we might actually find that there's some hot air lurking up there, and unfortunately that hot air that might be in the roof space up there really isn't doing me very much good down here. So I suspect that really what I need to do is to try to fill some of these gaps in and probably better insulate this garage. The more we insulate the garage, the more difference in temperature we're going to see between the inside world and the outside world, because less heat is going to leak outside, of course. So I'm sure that an absolutely huge amount of heat must be leaking out through that gap. So I'm sure that's something that we could plug up with a little bit of effort. However, plugging all those gaps and actually fitting insulation, that would also cost money, as would burning some diesel. So I guess in a perfect world, what I'd rather have is, rather than maybe having an 8 kilowatt heater that this is specified of, I'd rather have a 20 kilowatt heater and actually pay for a little bit more diesel. To me that would make more sense than actually spending all the time and trouble fully insulating this garage, if I can just overcome that heat loss. Of course, that's probably not a very green approach, but it is my lazy approach.
You have stolen my dreams and my childhood with your empty words.
Unfortunately, I'm not aware that anybody actually makes a 20 kilowatt cab heater or anything similar, but maybe I'll look out for one because, well, that might be ideal for my particular application. All I was really intending to do was actually to install this thing, have the camera running, see if it made a worthwhile difference to my garage. So whether or not you're one of those people who has a small workshop you'll want to heat, or maybe you're one of those people that enjoys travelling and shitting in a bucket, whatever your usage case, this Maxpeedingrods heater could be the one for you. So I'm going to give it a thumbs up. Worked for me. But I think for today, and until next time, as always, thanks for watching. But for now, that'll do. Bye bye. For those of you that enjoy travelling and shitting in a bucket, this diesel heater could be... Can't believe that, can I? I'll try again. Probably shouldn't say that.